All these fights happened in my family, and it was none of their business coming to my parents with that.
Do parents have the right to know their child's most sensitive secrets?
He was forcibly outed by his principal to the entire school and his family.
Today, we dive into a new state law meant to protect trans students.
Schools need to be a safe place for young people to experiment with who they are.
And why a tech titan says this is the final straw.
It's going to have others on the other side try to force school districts to keep secrets from parents.
This is CBS News Bay Area with Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Anne Makovec in for Liz, and that law draws a line between the classroom and the kitchen table, banning schools from alerting parents if their child changes their gender identity. It's meant to keep trans students safe, but should their families be left out of the loop? A new law here in California says that schools cannot force teachers to notify parents if their child changes their gender identity. Supporters say it's to prevent so-called forced outings of transgender students. Our Kelsey Thord spoke with a former student who advocated for the change after seeing the impacts firsthand.
They were nice about that. Sometimes they would even say,
20-year-old Kai grew up in Rockland, a suburb just north of Sacramento. He says as a transgender kid, it wasn't always easy going to school there.
I always knew I wasn't straight. And I didn't really understand that there were people who wouldn't like that.
Kai says for the most part, kids his age weren't shocked when he came out as trans. But that didn't stop some of them from bullying him.
I didn't really have a whole lot of friends. That's when, everyone decides, oh, we're going to hang out in these different groups. And I didn't really have anyone to hang out with. And I didn't know that many other trans people or queer people. So I felt really isolated.
Thankfully for Kai, he had very supportive parents who worked with him to get him into an alternative school that he felt safer in.
It was a huge difference from a traditional to the alternative chapter or charter school. He wanted to go to school.
There were so many, other LGBTQ people or neurodivergent people or, people who I saw myself in them and we could sort of be friends.
But not every queer kid in Rockland was as lucky as Kai. He says his roommate was actually outed by his school.
He was forcibly outed by his principal to the entire school and his family. And he had really bad experiences from that. It could have costed him his life.
Kai says, unfortunately, he knows several other kids who did take their own lives after being forcibly outed. That's why when Kai learned last year that the Rockland Unified School District School Board voted to implement a mandatory gender identity disclosure policy that would require schools to out students, even though he had already graduated, he knew he had to speak out.
I thought about those people and I thought about how lucky I was and how sad it is that I was lucky to have a good experience. I knew I had to speak up.
Kai teamed up with Equality California to lobby for a state bill that would ban schools from implementing forced outing policies like the one in Rockland. The bill, AB 1955, known as the Safety Act, was officially introduced by Assemblymember Chris Ward in May.
Forced outing policies have a measurable impact on mental health of LGBTQ students and have led to a rise in bullying, harassment, and discrimination. And we know that when one population of a student body is bullied, harassed, and discriminated against, all students are impacted.
Kai was there alongside Assemblymember Ward during that press conference. He says sharing his story and the stories of what his friends went through on that stage in front of lawmakers is something he will never forget.
It was very overwhelming, but in a good way. And it felt like I was contributing something good to the world.
Kai's mom, Cynthia, says it's also something she'll never forget. It's been a tough road for Kai, but she says she is so happy to see him fighting for his own rights and the rights of the next generation of kids growing up in Rockland and beyond.
Just that I'm very proud of him. He's a very strong individual and will always be at his back to protect him and help him, no matter what it is that he wants to do.
And with his parents' support, Kai says he plans to continue to advocate for a variety of LGBTQ causes.
If it's not, the landing spot or just LGBTQ issues in general, it's something else. I'm definitely a loudmouth.
He says he hopes his story will inspire others to get involved and show everyone just how important protecting LGBTQ youth is.
And then there is the other side that says parents should not be left in the dark. Still ahead, we're going to talk to the California Family Council about why they say the new law is putting children in danger instead of protecting them. Well, the new California law banning policies that require teachers to tell parents if their child changes their gender identity is also affecting the business world. Billionaire Elon Musk says he's now moving two of his companies out of state in response. Arlen Ramirez spoke with an LGBTQ advocate who insists the bill is about protecting children.
Elon Musk took to his own social media platform to announce that his companies X and SpaceX would be leaving California, citing the new law that prohibits mandating schools to notify families about student gender identity changes as the last straw. Musk said the law and others like it are attacking both families and companies, and he would be taking his businesses to Texas. The bill was signed by Governor Newsom after a fierce battle in Sacramento.
It's going to have others on the other side try to force school districts to keep secrets from parents. And I think that's a non-starter for me.
But LGBTQ rights advocates were quick to criticize Musk's latest move.
And just because he's rich doesn't mean he even understands the issues he is making comments about.
Gabrielle Antolovich of the Billy DeFrank Center in San Jose says she lived through the experience of having her school notify her parents that she was attracted to women.
And they didn't understand what was going on, that what horrible thing had I done, and then, all these fights happened in my family, and it was none of their business coming to my parents with that.
The new law comes after several school districts in California passed policies requiring that parents be notified if a child requests to change their gender identification. And Tolovich says it could protect some students from so-called forced outings.
Schools need to be a safe place for young people to experiment with who they are, what to wear, the look of your hair, the gender you feel most comfortable in.
Nationwide, at least 6 states have requirements that school notify parents when minors disclose that they are transgender.
Arizona and Idaho also require schools to provide certain information to parents, but they do not specify gender expression or sexual orientation. Well, joining me now is Greg Burt. He is the Vice President of California Family Council. Greg, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Your organization has a lot of concerns about this new law, so let's break some of them down. First, you say that it's actually dangerous for children. How so?
Well, children need their parents. I mean, children are very trusting. They're easily manipulated by adults, and they need their parents to protect them. And so the question is, how can parents actually protect their kids if the schools are keeping secrets about something as important as gender identity? Changing your gender identity is a big deal. And children need their parents, They need their oversight. Parents are legally and ethically responsible for overseeing the raising of their kids, and that responsibility doesn't belong to the teacher or an administrator or even a politician.
So is dangerous the right word, though, when we're talking, a child using a name or a pronoun? What is really the harm in that?
Well, the danger is this particular bill that was passed allows teachers to lie, actually lets them deceive parents about the gender identity of their kids. And you would think most parents would be really concerned if an adult told your own child whether they should keep secrets or not from their parents. I mean, you wouldn't want that adult around your child. And so it's a terrible precedent for the schools to encourage teachers and students to keep secrets from their own parents. We should be encouraging kids to talk to their parents about the things they're going through.
Okay, so
This creates a secrets only break down relationships and cause distrust.
okay, I think we can agree that all parents are not equal in this society. You know,
Sure.
we have some that would explore this with the child, and others that would be frankly angry or hateful toward them. So, do you agree that there could be negative consequences for a child in some families if this were to be revealed?
Yeah, listen, we know that not all parents are perfect, right? And these are really sensitive issues. But the solution is to encourage parents to have good conversations with their kids and encourage kids to have those important conversations with their parents. This is a policy that puts the state in the position of making kids distrust their parents. Everybody is now suspect. All parents are suspect. That's a terrible thing to tell kids. That's a terrible thing to tell teachers. We have teachers who don't want to be in the position of lying to parents and deceiving them. And that's what they're being forced to do. They got multiple kids that they have to keep track of what pronouns to use at school. And then when they talk to their teachers, they have to go around and use the original pronouns and the original names. Teachers don't want to have to do that.
Now, what about the cases of some families where, I mean, you could agree, I'm sure, that it would be dangerous for some kids to have their parents knowing this kind of information about them?
Well, if there are any parent who would kick their kid out of their home, abuse them because of this, we have a system already in place, CPS. That's abuse. That should be illegal. That's neglect. And so we already have, but what's happening is they're now saying, the government is now saying parents who just simply believe that biology determines gender, those parents are harmful to their own kids. But the majority of parents are still telling their little kids when they're young what their gender is because they believe that biology determines gender. Those parents aren't endangering their kids. This is really what it's doing is it's saying, if you have traditional beliefs about gender and sexuality, you're a danger to your own kids. And because of that, the schools are now going to keep secrets about your own children in your own schools. That violates the Constitution.
Okay, so I guess that gets to my next question is there's already a court challenge in this. So can you outline that legal argument?
Right. The first court challenge happened down at Escondido. Two teachers down there filed a lawsuit against their school district because they were being forced to keep the gender identity of their students secret from their parents. They did not want to deceive parents. They did not want to be involved in that. And so they took their case to a federal judge. Last September, the federal judge agreed with them and said the school should not be forcing teachers to lie. And these particular teachers were Christians, and they didn't want to be involved in this deception. And so the school district actually stopped their secrecy policy. So that policy could now be applied to the entire state. It's still in limbo. The judge is supposed to decide whether it now applies to every school district in the state.
Okay.
The other lawsuit that was filed was at Chino Valley. That was the first school district that passed a privacy policy, which started this whole thing. And they filed a lawsuit against AB 1955, saying that that law violates the Constitution because parents have the ultimate responsibility to guide the care and upbringing of their own children, and this violates that.
Okay, yes. So certainly a lot of legal issues here, but I do want to point out for accuracy that this bill does not require any teacher to hide this from families. It just makes sure that school districts do not require them to tell them. So
you're right. But almost every school district in California has a secrecy policy that the state government has said has been mandated by state law. So most teachers are being told by their school districts that it's illegal to tell parents if their child changes gender identity.
Okay, and most that is not accurate, though. It's not illegal for them to tell that. But yes, there are different
Right, but
rules
that's what the Attorney General is telling school
in
districts.
different school districts. All right, Greg Burt with the California Family Council. We appreciate it. We'll be right back.